Before we dive into today's chapter, we encourage you to subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell, and don't forget to like, comment, and share this audiobook with fellow parents and loved ones. You never know whose home and heart might be transformed by this message. You are welcome to Chapter 6 of Anchored Parenting, the role of discipline in godly parenting. Discipline, a loving act of correction. Discipline is often a misunderstood concept in parenting. In a world where the idea of discipline can be seen as harsh or punitive, it is important to remember that godly discipline is rooted in love and designed to shape the hearts of our children. It is not about punishment, but about correction and guidance that leads to growth, maturity, and a deeper relationship with God. Proverbs 3 verses 11 to 12 says, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, as a father the son he delights in." This verse is a clear reminder that discipline is a sign of love. Just as a parent corrects their child for their own good, God disciplines us because he loves us and desires the best for us. Similarly, as parents, we discipline our children not out of anger or frustration, but because we want them to grow in wisdom, character, and faith. Discipline in a biblical context is an expression of love and care, not a reaction to misbehavior. As parents, we must approach discipline with patience, consistency, and understanding, knowing that it plays a critical role in the spiritual and moral formation of our children. The importance of consistency in discipline. One of the most important aspects of godly discipline is consistency. Children thrive in an environment where expectations are clear and rules are upheld. Inconsistent discipline, where some behaviors are allowed one day and corrected the next, can lead to confusion and insecurity in a child. Consistency helps children understand boundaries and the importance of responsibility. Hebrews 12 verse 6 reminds us that the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. God's discipline is consistent and purposeful. When we discipline our children, we are to follow his example of fairness and consistency. This helps our children understand that their actions have consequences and that their choices matter. For instance, when I was raising my children, I made a point to establish clear rules and follow through with consequences if those rules were broken. It wasn't always easy, especially when the temptation to overlook small missteps was strong. But I quickly realized that being consistent with both rewards and consequences was crucial in teaching my children respect and accountability. By sticking to the rules, even in the most difficult moments, my children learned that their actions were taken seriously and that I was committed to helping them grow into responsible, godly individuals. Disciplining with love and respect. Discipline is not about instilling fear in our children, but about teaching them respect. Respect for themselves, for others, and for God. Ephesians 6 verse 4 instructs, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." This verse reminds us that discipline should never be harsh or overly critical. Instead, it should be done in a way that fosters growth and understanding. As parents, we should always ensure that our discipline is measured and appropriate for the situation. For example, while a stern word might be necessary in certain situations, physical punishment should be avoided whenever possible. When my son broke a valuable item in our home, instead of responding with anger, I calmly explained the importance of being careful with other people's things. I took the time to listen to his perspective, which helped him understand why he needed to be more responsible. A vital part of this is respecting our children as individuals. God created each child with their own temperament, strengths, and weaknesses. Some children respond well to verbal correction, while others might need more time and patience to understand the consequences of their actions. Proverbs 22 verse 6 instructs, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." Discipline that is aligned with God's word helps our children to understand the importance of righteousness and right living, setting them on a path that leads to wisdom and peace. The role of correction in spiritual growth. Discipline is deeply connected to spiritual growth. The Bible makes it clear that God's discipline is meant to produce righteousness and peace in the lives of his children. Hebrews 12 verse 11 says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." This principle holds true for our children as well. While the act of discipline may be difficult in the moment, the outcome is worth the effort. Godly discipline leads to spiritual growth, character development, and a deeper understanding of God's ways. When I disciplined my son, I would often incorporate a time for prayer, helping him to understand that discipline wasn't just about following rules, but about growing closer to God. For example, when he became upset after being corrected, I would gently guide him to pray, asking God for wisdom, patience, and a heart of obedience. This practice helped him understand that his actions affected his relationship with God and others, and that seeking God's guidance was key to making better choices. Disciplining in love, not in anger. One of the greatest challenges of discipline is ensuring that it is done in love and not in anger. Anger can cloud our judgment and cause us to act impulsively, whereas love compels us to correct in a way that promotes healing, growth, and restoration. Proverbs 14 verse 29 tells us, "Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly." As parents, we are called to exercise patience and self-control in moments of frustration. When I first became a parent, I struggled with how to respond when my children misbehaved. There were times when I felt overwhelmed by my emotions, and I realized that in those moments, I needed to take a step back and pray for God's patience and wisdom. I learned that taking a few moments to breathe, pray, and calm myself down before addressing my children's behavior helped me respond in a way that was consistent with my values and not my emotions. Over time, this became a vital tool in my parenting journey, ensuring that discipline was a loving response, not an emotional one. Teaching godly consequences. Consequences are a natural part of life, and they help children understand that their actions have a direct impact on themselves and others. As parents, we are tasked with teaching our children that consequences, when handled in a godly way, are not meant to be punitive but corrective. Galatians 6 verse 7 warns, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." This verse teaches us that the principle of sowing and reaping applies to all areas of life, including our behavior. Helping our children understand this principle is crucial in teaching them accountability and responsibility. For example, when my children acted out of turn, I would assign them a consequence that was related to the behavior, whether it was losing privileges or doing extra chores. These consequences were not intended to punish them harshly, but to help them understand the importance of making good choices and living with integrity. Over time, they began to make better decisions because they understood that their actions had consequences. The power of prayer and discipline. Prayer plays a significant role in the discipline process. We need God's wisdom to correct our children appropriately and God's strength to endure the sometimes difficult task of discipline. James 1 verse 5 encourages us, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." Prayer helps us remain patient, compassionate, and consistent in our approach to discipline. Before disciplining my children, I often took a moment to pray, asking God for the wisdom and strength to handle the situation with love and grace. This practice not only helped me stay calm, but also allowed me to rely on God for guidance, knowing that my role as a parent was one He entrusted to me. Conclusion: discipline that reflects God's heart. Discipline is an essential part of godly parenting. It is not about exerting control or punishing our children, but about guiding them to become the people God has created them to be. As we discipline our children with love, consistency, and patience, we are reflecting God's heart for His children, one of correction, growth, and transformation. By aligning our approach to discipline with God's Word, we help our children grow in wisdom, character, and faith. Remember that the ultimate goal of discipline is not just compliance, but transformation. As parents, our mission is to raise children who love God, respect others, and live according to His will. Through godly discipline, we are helping them develop the tools they need to navigate life's challenges and grow into the individuals God has called them to be. We hope you've been richly blessed by the message in this audiobook. If the words you've heard have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you on your journey with God, we invite you to consider supporting this work. Producing and sharing faith-filled resources like this takes time, effort, and resources. Your generous donation, no matter the amount, helps us continue to reach more lives, create more impactful content, and spread the light of God's truth to the ends of the earth. If you feel led to give, please do so prayerfully. Your support is a seed sown into God's kingdom, and we trust that He who sees in secret will reward you openly. To donate, send to this dollar account number, 062-161-4484. Bank name, Wema Bank. Account name, Taiwo Oluwaseun Ojo, or can send your support to this Naira account, 122-144-8121. Bank name is Zenith Bank, and account name is Domed Films Venture. Thank you for being a part of this mission. Together, we can do more for the kingdom.